Hey WWE group, this is Michael, and this is part 2 of my ECW or Hardcore Retrospective. Yesterday we left off with the formation of ECW. We talked about the whole everybody doing the thing, Shane Douglas, Dennis Carluzzo losing his mind, Todd Gordon saying NWA were no longer with them, we're now with ECW. So in 1994, you would have like a lot of the guys who were still with the company doing everything they can, whether they be tag teams fighting, and then you would get a whole bunch of new guys added to the roster. Sorry, I'm outside, and I think that's better. Apologies. You'd have new guys join the roster. You'd have guys like Eddie Guerrero, guys like Dean Malenko, and guys like Chris Benoit, and then they would join the roster, and they're from the Indies, and they came in, and even though ECW was weapons, and they said chairs, ladders, and tables, and pans, and what have you, Eddie, Chris, and Dean came in with just old school, simple wrestling, and the fans loved them for it, High flying, very technical, and it was fantastic. They loved it. And then later on throughout the year, while these guys were fighting, they decided we're going to need more to our roster. So Conan from WCW was also a luchador. He made some phone calls, and thanks to him, he got the luchadors to come to ECW, not WCW, ECW, and I'll get to that later on. He got Rey Mysterio, he got Psicosis, Juventud Guerrera, just a lot of these guys. And I remember watching a match where it was between Rey Mysterio and Psicosis, and they basically, Joel Gertner, before he became the Dudley Boys announcer / mouthpiece, introduced both wrestlers in Spanish, and he was fantastic because, even though they're in Philadelphia, the announcer did their announcement in Spanish as respect to both wrestlers. Joey Styles says that they did that as respect to both wrestlers. So basically, the audience didn't give could care less. But it was when it was all said and done, okay, we said the names, and that was it. I can't do my best. My Spanish is really horrible, but just Joel Gertner was just fantastic. Just the way he would say, well. Buenos dias, señores and señoritas, and do all that stuff. Rey Mysterio, and then the match would start. So those high flyers did some crazy things. Outside matches, indoor matches. They would have matches with Eddie, Chris, and Dean. And so when you would have, you'd have these fantastic matches, you would also have matches with the main roster, like Shane Douglas or Tommy Dreamer, or so on and so forth, and Too Cold Scorpio and Taz. And speaking of Taz, there was an incident in 1994, I think it was 94, 95, where Taz was tag team champions with Sabu. They couldn't stand each other, but yet they're tag team champions. And that was this was before the rivalry started. And so there's supposed to be a three-way dance for the tag belts between Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and another guy. Public Enemy, and then Taz and Sabu. So what happened was Sabu was booked to fight in Japan, and he didn't clear it through Paul, and he didn't clear it through anybody else at ECW, and Taz didn't know till the very last minute, like 2 days before he had to fly to Japan. He's like, "Oh, I'll do that." And then of course he told Paul, "Hey, they got me booked," and he said, "Don't worry, I'll do that." Even though Japan was paying him more money than ECW probably was at the time. This wasn't like 2000. This was like, but they still actually could get some decent pay. So they had the event, and before the event started, Paul is very angry, and he knows that Sabu is going to do no call, no show, because Sabu right now is probably in Japan right now. Taz is there, and well, now we can't do the match without Sabu. And then of course, before the event started, basically, it kind of in the whole WWF free-for-all or the special preview that they would do on YouTube, the prelims, whatever, Paul's enforcer, this giant white guy named 911, who's his bodyguard, and Taz, in his street clothes, not his ring gear, come to the ring and cut a scathing promo, where basically Paul Heyman just was not happy and he basically fired Sabu in front of everybody. He didn't say, "Sabu, you're fired." He just went in there and just basically poured his heart out and told, his frustration with the fans, saying, one of our team members decided in the locker room he didn't want to show up because he was going to make more money in Japan than he would have if he was here. If you're going to leave this, if you're going to fuck over the people, if you're going to fuck me over and the fans that made you a star in this company, let me know, then maybe I can work something out. And his rebuttal was, I swear to God, Paul, I'll be there. So basically, he just fired him right then and there on the spot. How he got back in the company, I'll never know, but that's beside the point. Just, Paul will go out and address things, saying, hey, Chris Benoit broke Sabu's neck, due to a botched move. Because Paul's philosophy was this: I'll never lie to the fans. I'll lie to the boys working for me and the wrestlers, but I will never lie to the fans. And that's, you gotta admire his, that whole straight up attitude. Yeah, it kind of sucks he lied to the boys in the back because they're the ones breaking their backs, their necks, and injuring themselves for you. Yet you're not going to be straight with us. You'll be straight with the audience who paid you to come. And it's like, okay, I can understand you paying the audience, you telling the audience the truth because they paid you. What about the guys who are actually getting in the goddamn ring and fighting? I don't see Hat Guy or one of the other guys doing a jump over the ring, get and fight. So, flat out and simple, there was a reason why some of the wrestlers still didn't trust him back then, and they still don't trust him to this day. I mean, New Jack basically hates his guts, and Danny Doring just cut a mean, shoot on him. So while this was happening, still just, they were surviving, hook and crook, no pay-per-view, just, straight up indies and anybody affiliated in the East Coast. This is back when you had to trade tapes with some people because you couldn't trade, this was before the internet, YouTube. People would like trade their tapes, like, here's something from Japan, I got something from ECW. Okay. And then of course you would have, more newer wrestlers join the promotion, like Chris Jericho would join from, Canada and join here, and he actually did this funny joke because I think the timeline's a little messed up, but I know that he was a TV champion, and Paul would, who was the travel agent, was the worst at giving people the worst news. So the fact that even though Chris lived in Calgary, he didn't live in Indy, he lived in Calgary, and then he was still coming back flying to do the fights, he would just call Paul just saying, when's this going to happen, where's my plane, where's my itinerary, to the point where he just called him and just said, hey, I am no longer going to work for your company, flat out and simple. Take your stupid title, your TV title, and, cram with walnuts, pal, because this is not worth it, goodbye. 5 minutes later, Paul called him and said, oh, Chris, I'm sorry, here's your flight itinerary, this is not. I'm so sorry, man. And basically, with minutes to spare, Chris just grabbed his shit, flew out to the Calgary airport, and flew to Philly. Because that's how the kind of guy Paulie was. Paulie was just a bit of a huckster, shyster, hustler. He did a lot of hook and crook shit, Again, going back to people, we've worked for who've done hook and crook stuff. He would get there, and then he would just say, hey, what the hell's going on? He's like, well, I got you a bereavement ticket. What do you mean a bereavement ticket? And I know I'm probably going to get a lot of trouble for saying this joke, but there's like a joke where an inside rib where the thing is, there was a ticket. A doctor said that there's a ticket for bereavement first, so we could fly Chris Jericho out there for the funeral of his stepbrother, Chris Benoit. And, kind of a rib, he's my brother-in-law, Chris Benoit, ha ha ha. So, basically, Paul E. just had like a doctor's pad, wrote saying, please excuse Mr. Jericho, blah, 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 the funeral of his brother, stepbrother, Chris Benoit, and just did that. So, basically he couldn't be mad at the guy, but, Paulie would do some crazy shit like that, whether it's, bereavement fare, last minute fares, or this and that, or just fake tickets for Ron Simmons. Ron Simmons famously said in an interview that I was there briefly and Paul had to give me a ticket out there at the last minute, and basically he couldn't get under my name, so he had to write a fake name for me, which is Dr. Seymour Blatt, which is a Jewish name. And Ron Simmons is like, do I look Jewish to you? Come on, man. Damn. But, I guess it was all the way of paying your dues. I mean, again, it's not like they had Ted Turner's money or Vince's money. It wasn't like they could just fly in a corporate jet or coach. They had to do whatever they could, by hook or crook. So there was that. And then, of course, in the middle of all this, going into 1995, a lot of things happened. One of them was that Taz got his neck broken, and it was a match between him and Eddie versus Dean Malenko and Too Cold Scorpio. A botched tombstone pile driver ended in him injuring the back of his neck right here and spinal. And the thing is, he's trying to tag Eddie, but the two guys were stupid and didn't know that he was injured. And finally, when he tagged in Eddie, the match was over. He goes up to Paul and he goes up to Tommy and he's like, dude, my neck, I can't feel anything, man. And so Paul's like, okay. And Tommy just saying, hey, I rode with the guy, we used to ride up and down, the country all the time, doing for ECW, took Taz to the hospital. Thank you, nice guy Dreamer. He took Taz to the hospital. They had the emergency check him out and then an x-ray, and Taz had broke his neck. And the doctor said, how the hell did you get in here? He said, well, I walked in. That's impossible. Your neck's broken. You shouldn't be able to move that bad, but you did. So Taz is out for 9 months with a broken neck. And I don't know how the hell he was able to do that, but he did it, so more power to you. And the cool thing was, even though that Taz didn't have like an ironclad contract, Paul still paid him. Every week he was supposed to be there for 9 months, he just gave him a paycheck. It's the least you can do because, you got a broken neck, your hospital bills, what else are you going to do? So he just kept paying him and paying him and paying him. And he didn't have a contract. He just had a handshake with the man, which I always thought was fantastic. And I thought that was, sweet of Paul, even though he'd done some really shitty stuff. Hey, you're looking out for your interest. It's not like the boys nowadays, like Seth Rollins, had to get a knee taken when he's out for 6-7 months. I'm pretty sure, Vince is paying him, a paycheck weekly, like with Cena or Orton or any of the other guys who are injured recently on the current WWE roster. They're being injured, but yet I'm pretty sure they're getting a check every week because, you know what, hey, I got injured on the job because of you. I'm in a union job, so if I was going to get injured, I'm pretty sure they'd give me a nice settlement, or if I wanted to come back, they'd pay me every other week. So, there's no wrestlers union, unfortunately, but it'd be great if you did. That's a different story altogether. So with Taz being injured, he was out, and then of course Eric Bischoff and Ted Turner decided to reshape and refocus WCW. So what are you going to do when you decide to reshape and refocus a sports company? You recruit. So basically he just came in and took these luchadors. He took Conan. He took the luchadors, Rey Mysterio, of course. He took Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero. One fell swoop. All the WCW. So Paul's mad, it's like all my guys are gone because Eric Bischoff is paying these boys more money than I can afford. I don't have the budget to give these guys what they want. But then again, that was one of WCW's biggest things, just whip up a checkbook, sign the name on the dotted line, and now you work for us. We'll pay you astronomical money. But we're not gonna, we'll promote you to be a mid-card guy, but that's that. And, well, it's like, well, now what the hell are we going to do? So Paul did his best to keep employing people, kept doing what he can to, get his name, more name recognition, more talent. I mean, he still had Mikey Whipwreck. He still had Cactus Jack. He still had all these different guys. Dreamer. He still had Shane Douglas. He still had Raven. He still had Taz. Well, Taz is out, but he still had him under contract. And I think Sabu came back later on the line too. Stevie Richards, the Blue Meanie, Nova, etc. So at the time, I'd say maybe it was mid 1995, he made a phone call to Stunning Steve Austin. Austin was fired from WCW because of an injury, and Bischoff didn't want to pay him and just let him go. So unemployed, he's at home, angry, and Paul called him. He's like, hey, I was the first guy to reach out to him. And I said, hey, what's going on? Oh, nothing, guy. I got fired. They fired you? Yeah, fucking assholes, they fired me. Well, you want to talk about it? Yeah, sure, kid. Oh, do you want to talk about it on the air? On the air? Yeah, I want to talk about it here. Well, goddamn, kid, how you want to do that? You got a grievance? I have a TV show. Why don't you come up to Philadelphia and let's, cut the hash. And that's when Steve Austin, the Extreme Superstar, was born, and damned if he didn't know how to carry his own promotion. He just basically just tore everything up. He had his own little spoof called Monday NyQuil instead of Monday Nitro, and he just did this funny ass thing. Bottle of Geritol on a pole man. It's basically him with a suit and a wig on. It was funny, but it was horrible. Anyways, I'll do part 3 tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Bye.